I am currently in the Murphy door hallway, which is what I've been calling this project because it is a random hallway in the primary bedroom between the bedroom and the bathroom. This is not the closet. The closet's on the other side of the bathroom. So this is just additional storage, which is awesome. It is slanted though, which makes it a little more complicated, and it's just been open ever since we moved in. So it has not been very attractive. My goal is to make this space look really good and be very functional. So I've been building hidden doors to hide the slanted storage and then give me exterior storage. So I have built 4 of them so far, 2 sets of 2. These are the same design, and then I am going to add doors 5 and 6 today. They are the same design as each other, and then doors 7 and 8 will be a different design, but will match each other as well. I have done the doors 4, 5, and 6, and then on the hinges, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the hinges because that was one of the most complicated parts of this whole project, figuring out the Murphy door thing. Since shelves already existed in this opening, I didn't want to tear those out and rebuild additional storage when it was already there. So that meant I had to build a very shallow frame to fit within the door frame. I used 1x4 pine boards to create that frame. I went out of order and built the cabinet doors first. Since I had never made my own cabinet doors, I wanted to make sure I could do it before I built the entire door. So then I built the frame around the dimensions of the cabinet doors that I made, and then just checked the sizing along the way to make sure that it all fit. When it was time to mount this frame onto the Murphy door hinges, I started with the bottom and then added the top. I was going to assemble it in place, but I apparently mismeasured by a very small amount, but didn't matter. It was still a huge headache. Videos never capture the frustration, but this took way too much time. I had to stop recording yesterday because I got so annoyed with these doors, and there really was no progress happening. It was going so unbelievably slow. I tried to mount them onto the hinges. There was not enough room. I had to notch out this top section because apparently my bookshelf was about 1/4 of an inch too tall. So I'll fix that on the other bookshelf that I'm gonna have to build, and finally got that to fit. And then it started hitting. It's hitting at this back corner here. It's hitting on the face frames of these built-in. So I'm gonna take off the face frames. Hopefully that fixes the issue and I can actually start moving a little quicker on this. Nothing ever goes according to plan. These are butchered. These were on, so they were really hard to get off. So I'm gonna have to get something to cover the ends of these because I need the space behind it. So, lesson learned. 2 sets of hinges so far with this Murphy door project. The first set being the actual Murphy door hinges, the brand Murphy door. They sell their hinges separately. These are so easy to work with. They're awesome, but they cost $150 for 1 set. So 1 door, $150 for 2 doors for the opening, it's $300. By far the most expensive piece of this project so far. But they're easy to use. They come with a template. This piece goes on the bottom. And then this goes on the bottom of the bookshelf or whatever you're using. And it just sets right inside the hole and it pivots around. It's super easy, super self-explanatory. The bottom was easy to figure out. The top took a little bit more figuring out, but not much. This one has so this goes on the bookshelf and this goes on the upper door jamb, and this pin is what goes through. So once you get them all lined up, so you push the pin through and then that locks it into place, and then the door can completely move. This one's nice because there's a little bit of flexibility with the height. You don't have to notch out anything into the bookshelf. This goes right on top of where you want it to go. So it's just more self-explanatory because you don't have to notch anything out. There's a little bit more room for error. I made a lot of errors and I just moved these around. So I liked these Murphy door hinges a ton. Other set that I saw a lot of people have used are these Tambi hinges. These are $50 for 1 set, so 1/3 of the price, and relatively easy to use. However, you have to notch out. See this whole upper piece? That has to be notched out of the top because this goes up into the ceiling, and I'll show you when I install it closer up. And then this has to be notched out because this goes down into the bookshelf. And then there's just less room for error. So what happens, I'll show you, it can't be mounted directly like this, obviously, because of the screw sticking out. So you have to mount it 90 degrees, you line those up, and then that's when you like screw this back in so that the, so that this falls back in, and then that holds it together. And that's how you get your door to work. The next step was building the lower cabinet doors. I'm gonna have to do a whole video on how I did these doors because they honestly took more time than anything else. I used MDF because it is a lot easier to cut and therefore easier to work with. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. I love how easy it is to work with. I love how the saw and the router just cut through it like butter, but MDF is so messy. The dust gets everywhere, even more so than regular sawdust. It's also a little risky to use in certain places in your house if they're susceptible to moisture. I learned it the hard way when baseboards that someone had used MDF on were hit with water. It took like 2 seconds. They swelled up immediately and had to be replaced. I used 3/4 inch MDF boards and I cut them into 2-inch strips to form my cabinet frame. I did a routered edge on the front to add some detail, and then I routered out the back to make room for the 1/4 inch MDF. I used Rue glue is the brand name because it is meant to be used on porous surfaces. Once everything was fully dry, I did a light sanding and then was ready for paint. Because MDF absorbs moisture so quickly, I did use a sealant that is meant for MDF. I used that before applying any sort of paint. Then I used all-in-one paint in the color putty. I used plexiglass for the inserts on the arched cabinet doors. I might go back and switch those out for glass at some point because I think it would really elevate it, but the plexiglass worked great for now. Hinges are so difficult for me to figure out, and so I'll probably go into more detail on the hinges when I do the in-depth tutorial on the cabinet doors. Anyone who knows me will not be a bit surprised that I used pole wrap as my backing on these cabinets. I needed something super thin and also something that would match back to the IKEA pieces that I used on doors 1 through 4. Staining the pole wrap dark walnut was the perfect solution. It worked out great. I love how it looks through the plexiglass on the arch doors. The next step was adding the hardware. Since these doors are so different from the design of 1 through 4, I wanted the hardware to feel different but also tie into it. I did this by using the same knobs but adding a back plate, and then I found pulls that matched back to the picture rails really well. I painted the back of the pole wrap and then added fabric down the edges to cover up any screw holes. I still have to finish it off with a couple pieces of trim and figure out how to organize the inside, but I love how they turned out, and I'm excited to get into doors 7 and 8. 1 through 6 are done, 2 more to go, and then this hallway will be complete.